Good evening, everyone. Just got to position myself a bit better here. Okay. Good evening. This week's Parsha is Parsha Beha'alotcha, Tafshin Pei Beis. And we're going to be focusing on Parakid Aleph, chapter 11, Pasuk Zayin, verse 16. And this is the point in the Parsha where the Jewish people are complaining. They've complained about being in the desert. They complained about the mun, the heavenly food that they received. And they talk about how they missed the regular food that they had in Egypt. And Moshe takes a look he sizes up the situation. He says to Hashem that I can't do this by myself. I can't carry the people by my own. I need help. So Hashem says to him, Hashem said to Moshe, Es shivim ish mezikna Yisrael, gather to me 70 men from the elders of Israel, Asher yodata kihem ziknei ha'am, they are the elders of the nation, the shaitrav and its officers. You shall take them to the tent of meeting, to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle. And they shall stand there with you. The Torah tells us that Moshe gathered these 70 men at the Omoid, at the Mishkan. Hashem sent prophecy to Moshe, and from Moshe went to these people. They prophesied, and that's how they were initiated to be the elders of the Jewish people, those that would assist Moshe in leading the Jewish people. So there is the fact that the Torah says, Hashem says to Moshe, Esfali Shivim Ish. Now, clearly it means 70 men, but the word Ish is actually literally means man. It's singular form. Plural form would have been Anoshim, Shivim Anoshim. Now, there are times where we find that many people are addressed in singular form when they're addressed as a group. There are other, can't think right now of other examples, but there's another example of this in the Torah. And here too, Shivim Ish, it is singular form, but it means plural, 70 men. But the question is, when the Torah does this, why did the Torah choose to do that here? There typically means there's some other lesson, there's something else to derive from the fact that the Torah used this unusual form for plural, meaning he used a singular form for plural. So the Medrash says that the fact that the Torah here said the word ish means to tell us that we have to find other places in the Torah where the word ish appears and apply the context there to here. What we find by those times where it says ish, to apply what's going on there to here. Meaning the Shivim Ish, the 70 men here, the fact that we said the word ish means to look for the word ish in other places of the Torah and see what the context of those words are and apply it to here. So the Medrash says that Medrash cites two other places where the word ish. Now, in those places, ish means in singular form, but the word ish is there. And one of those places is actually at the end of this week's Parsha, where the Torah describes Moshe as Voha'ish Moshe Anav Ma'od. The man Moshe was exceedingly humble. So there we find the word ish, and that ish was a humble ish, a very humble person. And that's one word ish that is being alluded to over here. That the context of humility is to be brought here. The common word ish, the same way ish at the end of the Parsha means a modest ish, a modest person. Here also we have to apply that concept of modesty. Another place where the Torah says the word ish is not by a person. It's by Hashem. It's something that we read in the Shiras Hayam, the song the Jewish people sang at the splitting of the Red Sea, which we say in davening every morning. There's a verse that reads, Hashem ish milchama, Hashem shemai. God is a man of war, so to speak. It's talking about God's might and power against the Egyptians. Here too the word ish appears. But here the word ish is called ish. The word ish comes together with milchama, a man of war. So therefore, says the Medrash, here too, we have to apply the ish milchama, the word ish with war, to here also. The explanation that's given is that the lesson the Medrash is saying is that a leader has to have the qualities of ish. He has to have the quality of humility that Moshe had. Ish Moshe anav ma'od. The man Moshe was very humble. So that quality of ish that relates to humility is here also to say that the leaders have to remain humble. They are becoming powerful people. They're becoming people who are in control of others. Their stature has risen greatly, but they can't let that get to their head. They have to remain humble. They have to realize it's not about them. It's about the people. It's about the mission Hashem has given them, how Hashem has chosen them to do this job. And it's not about themselves. It's all about serving Hashem and taking care of the Jewish people. So the leader has to be ish. He has to be a man. He has to be ish. Has to be a man. What kind of man? Ish Moshe of Ma'od, very humble. And at the same time, the leader has to be an ish milchama, a man of war, which means that the leader has to be ready to stand up and fight for what's right. And the two things are not a contradiction. To have the quality of humility and to fight for what's right are not contradictions. A humble person doesn't get caught up themselves. A humble person doesn't take credit for themselves. But a humble person knows who they are, what their mission is, what their responsibilities are, what their capabilities are, and they do what they have to do. You can be a very humble person, and you're not caught up in yourself. But if you have to fight the fight, you will do it because you're doing it because you're a servant of Hashem. So the leader has to have both qualities. The quality of being humble and at the same time being ready to get up and fight for what's right. That's why, and not to say, who am I to do that? Who am I? The humble person doesn't take credit for themselves. So who am I? They don't think overly highly of themselves. You don't have to think overly highly of yourself. You just have to know what you have to do and be ready to do it. So the humble person, that's the reason why the Torah chose the word here, ish, the singular form, to allude to say that Moshe has to instill in these leaders. They have to have the quality of ish. They have to have the quality of ish that comes together that we find by humility, and they have to be humble people. They also have to internalize the quality of ish. That's ish milchama, emulating God, who's called the man of war, in the sense of standing up and fighting for what's right. And the example, the illustration of such a person was a person that we mentioned many times before, who's known as the Chafetz Chaim, of Yisrael Meir Kagan. He died in, I believe it was 1933. The Chafetz Chaim is someone that he's known as the Chafetz Chaim because he became famous for his work that was entitled the Chafetz Chaim, and that's what he was referred to as. And the Chafetz Chaim is someone whose influence is still is so strong in our time still. But he was a very humble person. If somebody came to him for a blessing, for a bracha, he didn't understand why they're coming to him for a bracha. At the same time, the Chafetz Chaim knew who he was, knew what his standing was in the Jewish world, and any time there was an issue that had to be taken care of, he would get up and he would go to that community and speak to the community. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't like, who am I to do this? He wasn't afraid of anybody saying, who are you to do this? Or you're not from here, why are you doing this? He understood what his standing was in the Jewish people. He understood his responsibilities. He understood his responsibilities to Hashem and to the Jewish people. So as humble as he was, it never stopped him from getting up and going to places, even in his old age, to go to towns, to go to cities, and to speak about what needs to be fixed up in Jewish life. There were times when there was a mikveh in a city that wasn't being taken care of. And the Chafetz Chaim, at his advanced age, went to that city to speak to them about getting it done. Everyone needs to get together and fix it. Jewish community can't go without a mikveh. So he knew he was a humble person, a very humble person. If you see a picture of the Chafetz Chaim, he didn't even walk around in rabbinic garb. He didn't have a rabbinic position, actually. I mean, he was the head of a yeshiva. But he walked around in very simple garb, like a very simple person. Very humble. But he understood who he was and what he had to do. He was the Ish Moshe. He was the man Moshe. He was humble. He was the Hashem Ish Milchama, the man of war. And that's what every leader needs. And every leader, I often stress that a leader, there are peoples in leadership positions. I call them official leadership positions. But we're all leaders. We lead families. We lead people at work. We no matter who we are, we find ourselves in leadership positions. And in that leadership position, we have to understand that not to let it get to our head, to be humble, but to stand up for what's right and not to be scared to do that. Okay, that's one thought I want to share with you about this part of the Parsha. I want to share with you another thought. And this thought comes from the Meshech Chochmah. How the Meshech Chochmah explains, what went on here, or what was meant to be conveyed, let's put it that way. What was meant to be conveyed when these 70 men were initiated into their leadership positions through prophecy. That's how they were initiated. Why was that the form of the initiation? The Meshech Chochmah doesn't say this as the question, but from the explanation that he gives to what was going on, it would seem to me that he's trying to explain why was this the way to initiate them? Through prophecy. So he explains that, again, we have to look at the context of where this was all taking place in. And that is that, or the time was taking place. As I mentioned before, the Jewish people were complaining. It says the Safsuf, which means the people who kind of tagged along, not the people of the highest stature, but they began hisavu tava. They had a desire. And they brought the Jewish people along into their complaints. And they complained about how they remembered how in Egypt they had meat and they had different kinds of vegetables to eat. And here, all they have is the man. All they have is that food that falls from the sky. Now, the obvious question that's asked is that there's a well-known medrash that whatever you wanted the man to taste like, it tasted like it. So you want it to taste like meat, it tastes like meat. You want it to taste like vegetables, it tastes like vegetables. So what are they complaining about? So I believe that, what they could complaining about is that, you can have the taste of the food, but there's not the texture, not the appearance. And this is what they missed. And they complained. And it's quite surprising that this was such a problematic thing to them. But again, they were in the desert. They were not in the most comfortable of situations. And they complained, what they were complaining about and what brought them to complain, that's a separate discussion, but they complained. But it was a complaint about material desires, physical desires, to be able to have the meat and be able to have the vegetables. And after their complaining, Hashem sent them the quail birds to give them meat. But that was what preceded this. What preceded this, when Moshe then said to Hashem, I can't do this all myself, what preceded that was these complaints about the food. So the way now that Moshe is going to get those 70 people to help him, the message being conveyed to them through this process of initiating them into their leadership through prophecy is to bring up the following point. The Meshech Chochmah says that we know that the tribe of Levi was separated from the rest of the Jewish people. Originally the Kohanim, those who were supposed to do the service of the sacrifices, were supposed to be the firstborn, which would have been the firstborn from the entire nation. But after the sin of the golden calf, that changed. The tribe of Levi was now designated as the tribe who did not worship the golden calf. That would be the tribe that would be doing the service in the Mishkan. And Aaron and his family, they were the Kohanim. The Kohanim were separated from the rest of Levi, that they actually did the service of the sacrifices. And the rest of the tribe of Levi would have their jobs that they did in the tabernacle, in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple. But this was the tribe that was designated and separated from the rest of the Jewish people to be involved in the holy service of the Mishkan, which means that they were given a certain connection to God that the rest of the Jewish people didn't have. That's just the way it is. If you're the one that does the sacrifices, if you're the Kohen Gadol, or even a regular Kohen, do the sacrifices, you're a Levi, you're at the Beis HaMikdash, you're there. That's your job to be there. You have your own jobs to do in the Beis HaMikdash. That allowed the entire tribe of Levi to have a certain special experience of closeness to Hashem, of connection to Hashem that the rest of the Jewish people didn't have. So Meshech Chochmah suggests that perhaps people were starting to think that now that the tribe of Levi is that tribe that's designated to be the closest to Hashem, at least that's how it appeared. So then, if you're going to be someone that connects to Hashem like a Kohen the Beis HaMikdash, then it makes sense that you have to be holy, and therefore being holy entails not being so indulgent in the desires of this world. If you're going to be someone that's wholly connected to God in such an intense way, in such a strong way, then you're the kind of person who has to kind of don't indulge so much, because indulging makes you more materialistic, more physical, and then you won't be able to experience that connection to God that you have by doing the service in the Mishkan. But the rest of us who don't have that connection, who are not going to have that experience of closeness to Hashem as the Leviim do, so we don't need to be extra holy. We don't need to have to refrain from physical pleasures. Again, there are forbidden ones, of course, those ones not. But there was a point of time to the Jewish people when it came to eating meat. In the desert, they couldn't just eat meat, besides for the quail. If they're going to eat meat, they had to bring a sacrifice. And by the Jewish people, it was like, what do we need this for? Why shouldn't we have meat? And why shouldn't we be having all the vegetables? We're not going to have that same connection to God as the Leviim do. We don't need to be holy. We're not going to have that connection. So why not be able to indulge? Why not have all these things? They had a taiva, they had a desire, because why not? Why not indulge if we're not going to have that connection to God anyway, like the Leviim, like the tribe of Levi has? Then we don't need to be so holy, and so therefore, why do we need to refrain from these pleasures? Why not have them? So Hashem at the end gave them quail, but Hashem wanted to teach them is that it's true that the tribe of Levi has their unique mission and their unique connection to Hashem that the rest of the Jewish people don't have. But any Jew, if they want to, they can have a very special connection to Hashem. And that's called prophecy. Prophecy is its own unique connection to Hashem that anybody can attain. If you want to attain it, you have to be holy. The Jewish people were to be shown in this process when now the 70 elders would be initiated, and they would come from all the Jewish people. That at this point of time, the Jewish people are saying to themselves that it's only Levi that has a special connection. But we can't have that connection, and therefore, why do we need to be holy? And the answer is, if you want to have a special connection to Hashem, a very unique and special connection to Hashem, one that even a Levi or a Kohen doesn't necessarily have, you could be a prophet. Look at all those people who came from amongst you, who became the leaders of the Jewish people. They all received prophecy. You don't have to be a Kohen or a Levi only to have that special connection. You could be a prophet. Anybody can be a prophet. Anybody can have that special connection. And therefore, yes, the Jewish people as a whole should be kaddish, should be holy. And I think the way to explain it even more is that it's not just unique to having prophets. Clearly a prophet, if he wants to have prophecy, he has to condition himself, and a lot of that has to do with complete control of their physical desires. But a prophet, the greatness of a prophet will merit a higher level of prophecy depending on the level of the Jewish people. If the Jewish people are deserving to have a prophet of a higher level, then the prophet will be higher. If they're not deserving, he won't. He'll attain a connection, but with the people that he serves or the people that he is amongst, depending on who they are, that makes a difference to his level of prophecy. So what we are, as holy as we are, makes a difference in the holiness of the prophet. It's not just the prophecy. Prophecy was to show the Jewish people that there's this unique connection that every Jew can have, and therefore, to be sanctified, to be holy, makes sense. And even if you may not necessarily be a Kohen, a Navi, a prophet, but nonetheless, the holier the people are, then the more connection they have to God, and the more their prophet will have connection to God. The prophecy was a sign to show the Jewish people that connection to God that comes and that is enhanced by how much we sanctify ourselves is not just about the Leviim. Look at all your leaders, all the leaders that are represented by all of you. They all became prophets. Everybody can be a prophet. And the fact that we can be a prophet is a sign that everyone can have a unique connection to God that one attains through being holy. And even if you're not a prophet, the holier you are, the more connection you have. So the purpose of initiating the leaders through prophecy was to instill into the Jewish people that don't think that only the tribe of Levi can have a unique connection to Hashem. But everyone can be a prophet. Look, from amongst you, they all became prophets. That represents that everyone can have that unique connection to Hashem. It means everyone, even if you're not a prophet, has the ability to have a unique connection to God, which is enhanced through sanctity, through how we sanctify ourselves, through how much we control our physical desires, how much self-control that we have. And through that, everyone can have that connection. And that's what was being taught to the Jewish people. Don't think that there's no reason for you to sanctify yourselves, because only the tribe of Levi now is separated to be connected to God. No, it's for everyone. Everyone can have a connection to God, and therefore everyone, if they're interested in a connection to God, and a serious connection to God, then they need to sanctify themselves. And sanctifying oneself means to have self-control and to control one's physical desires. Through that, we become holy, and through that, we can connect to the holiest of holy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Almighty. Have a wonderful evening.